everyone. I'm very, very grateful for being here at this Libertarian Conference. It's so rare that I get to spend time around fellow Libertarians. I'm so used to hearing the message of statism and the necessity of it. So I'd like to sort of lead off with, how many times have you what are some typical arguments that you'll hear as to why libertarianism won't work? You'll hear, you guys don't care about the law. There'll be all these other, they'll just say, oh, you're disrespectful, you're not respectful enough and we can't hear your arguments. There'll be all these sorts of little, things that people will throw at you. And it makes it hard for us as libertarians because we can't directly convince people of our ideas. So what if there were ways other than directly converting them? Maybe people have this ideology and we can't directly convert them, but sort of indirectly get them. So an example of that might be people to use sort of libertarian services or libertarian things without really knowing that they're libertarian. So, I think a great example is using Uber, right? So people who use Uber are just doing it purely because it's cheaper and it's safer and it's better functionality. So in the same way, I think one of the things that technology is now allowing us to do is to sort of have two groups of libertarians, let's say. They've got the people like us who are more, let's say, ideologically committed libertarians, and then you've got the people who are just sort of libertarian because they're just using a libertarian sort of service or an alternate service to what the state provides. So I think that's where examples like Tor and Bitcoin and OpenBazaar, if you guys have heard of that. So OpenBazaar is basically a online, think of it as eBay using Bitcoin, but entirely distributed and something that can't be shut down, controlled by a government. So in that way, we're able to sort of realize that maybe we can't directly convince everyone to outwardly be a libertarian, but we can try and show them that, hey, look, here are some alternate systems that you can use, and you don't really even have to be a libertarian to use them. You just use them because they're cheaper or they're safer or whatever, or because maybe the the normal way has been blocked for you. Let's say, there's some sort of rule about, you can't do cash transactions, which we're now seeing in various different countries. So actually some examples of that. So Italy, you can't do cash transactions over 1,000 euro. Switzerland has proposed banning cash payments in excess of 100,000 francs. Russia banned cash transactions over $10,000. So these are all examples of where you could use Bitcoin as an alternative to what the state provides, and it's something that nobody can stop you from doing. And I think in a way this sort of ties back to what Darcy was saying, is that sometimes a new competitor will come in and they will become, firstly they're just a new entrant, but then eventually they can become the incumbent. But what if we use technology in ways that can't be shut down? So just for those who, I understand people here might have different levels of understanding about what Bitcoin is. So Bitcoin is a payment network and a currency. But the really cool thing about Bitcoin as a payment network is it's not centrally controllable. I can send money to Dan like that with an email, or it's like sending an email. And so in that way, it helps stop censorship that could happen in a centralized manner. And the other cool thing about it is, because it's a new alternative, it means that it can also help sort of stop a state from becoming overly controlling, in the same way that tax competition helps stop different countries from raising their tax rates too high. So yeah, just another way to think about what I'm saying there is that maybe, why are we in this situation now? Why do we have so much, so many people who believe in this idea? Why do we have so much government? Well, it's probably three things, or at least one way to think about it is three things. Ideology, and then you could think of it as high transaction costs, and then asset specificity. So that means certain things that are, like if you need a cash register, you need a very specific piece of machinery to do that. But nowadays you can get a tablet, and people can, do payment from that with PayPass and all of that. So over time, we're actually seeing moving more and more towards having ability to not use the state alternative. So, search costs are coming down. You can use Google and Wikipedia. Your bargaining costs are coming down. You can go to Amazon and eBay and so on. So you can sort of see that we don't directly have to convince people. We can just sort of continue saving and accumulating capital and allowing entrepreneurs to do what they do best, and that will help us reduce reliance upon the state. And another way that can happen is through insurance. So, insurance a couple hundred years ago might have only been maritime insurance, but nowadays, as more and more people are saving, there are more possible forms of insurance. You can get firefighting, you can get security, you can get risk management. All these are the things that enable us to reduce reliance on the state. So they're just some of the examples that I wanted to bring up. One other example would just be private arbitration. So that's something that people are using a lot, and this is actually really common in say, joint venture contracts between companies or international ventures between two different companies. They'll often have a joint venture, or let's say, an arbitration clause inside their contract. And the usual way it's structured will be, if there's a dispute, we first go to arbitration because that's cheaper and faster. But what would happen if more and more people started using that, and then we had these private arbitration courts, right? And that's sort of the idea that I'm trying to get across to you guys. So I'll leave it there. But basically, to sum up, we're already moving towards the libertarian society, and new innovations are letting people opt out of state mechanisms and opt in to free market mechanisms. And they don't necessarily have to be committed ideologically. They just want cheaper, safer, superior alternatives. So that's it. Thank you.